Hi, my name is Debra R. Richardson of Debra R. Richardson LLC, and I help you clean up your vendor data, clean up your vendor processes so you can pay the right vendor. And you might be wondering how I got to that. Well, I'm going to tell you because this week's Vendor Master File tip of the week is I hated being voluntold, but it helped me find my new or my next path, which is very relevant because October 2021, when I'm publishing this, is the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And this year, for every week, every different week, they have a different focus. And last week's focus was on cybersecurity careers. And so let me tell you how I kind of started along this path. So here's the story. I was voluntold, and mind you, it was because we had two security incidents. And isn't that the way it always starts? Don't really take it seriously or put a focus on it until something happens. We definitely need to get out of that mindset and get into the preventative mindset. But anyway, those things happened, and I was volunteered or voluntold by my boss to work with the payroll manager because that's the other area where fraudsters were trying to divert payments and get you to update the employee bank account. So on my side, I had vendors, and so I had the vendors' bank accounts under my control because I had the vendor master file, and then the payroll manager had the employee information that could be social engineered, just like the vendor information, to change those bank accounts and to divert those payments. And so we were both kind of voluntold, and I had never worked with that payroll manager before, and it turned out to be a very great experience. But what it did is eventually we implemented authentication techniques. I think we had over 70 internal controls that we implemented. And then we also had a lot of best practices, and it really opened my eyes. And more than anything, it really changed my mindset in two different areas. And the first area was thinking of it of not just protecting the vendors and the company or my company from, the potential loss of a fraudulent payment, but it was also paying attention to and putting at the forefront the employees or the team members that were, that could have or were making these mistakes or could make these be social engineered, right? Because that's a consequence in itself. And let's not talk about, not even talking about people getting potentially fired, or I always talk about in the UK how someone was sued. And even though the judge dismissed the case, she in a subsequent article, that person said that they didn't think that they were, employable because anytime anyone searched your name, that will come up. So I talk about that a lot. But you can also see things where, and I have seen with team members and also now my clients, well, people will leave, they'll retire early, and at the very minimum, it's really a blow to their self-confidence, and it can cause a lot of embarrassment as well. And so I like to put the focus on the team members because they are the ones that are on front line every day, especially the vendor team, because they are really, I call them the new front line against these cyber criminals, because they're getting emails and phone calls thrown at them all day, every day, to try and get them to divert payments, to reveal sensitive information, all in the pursuit of getting that vendor's payment. So that's one thing. And if you are a manager, think about your people. If you are a team member, think about how you can protect yourself and speak up to leadership if you don't feel you have enough training, or if you feel there should be some additional processes or controls or best practices, authentication techniques put into place in order to protect your vendor, your company, and yourselves. And then the other place where I had to have a different mindset is, you always think of AP as just a job, right? You have to, very transactional. You have to get the invoices, you have to get the vendor files created. You have to get the invoices posted, and then you have to get the payments generated, right? So you think of it more as a transactional activity, but you really need to think about it as a bank, right? So accounts payable really is not a bank, but in it still has that same function. So in a way, right, it is like a bank where you are paying vendors and giving out money. And so you have to get into the mindset of the bank. And so I don't know about you, but when I call my bank, they confirm who I am by having me answer 2 to 3 questions before they even talk to me about whatever it is I came to talk to them about. And so if you think about it in that mindset, you need to do the same thing with your vendors. They're emailing you, they're calling you. How do you know they are who they say they are? And so authenticate them before you talk to them or communicate with them about whatever it is that they contacted you about. Ask them 2 to 3 questions that only someone that works at the vendor would know, and make sure you're not giving that information out in other places so that they could use it to authenticate. So a great example is if you have someone reach out because they want to change the banking information. Well, ask them the last 4 digits of their tax ID, and then ask them the last 4 digits of their existing bank account number. And if they don't have that, then why do they even have the authority to change the bank account, information? So use that authentication that the bank uses to verify you are who you say you are. Use that with the vendors as well. All right, so I talked about how October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and every week there is a different theme. And I will put a link to a blog post that I have about Cybersecurity Awareness Week if you want to find out more information, especially about cyber security careers. If you are thinking about maybe switching careers from AP to cybersecurity, or just want more education, which is what I did. And that allowed me to come to this new path where I am working with accounts payable teams to add those authentication techniques, to add those internal controls, to add those best practices so that they avoid so that you avoid not only fraud, but also regulatory fines and just overall bad vendor data. Now, if you would like more information on how to improve your vendor process, please go to my website at debrarrichardson.com for free tools and other resources that you can download. So good luck, and be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to be notified next Tuesday for the next Vendor Master File tip of the week.